Well, good morning. Today's workout is a 1-hour low zone 2 bike ride on the indoor trainer in the basement. And it ends off with 5 30-second sprints at the very end just to cap it off. It's nothing crazy, just steady, controlled, and a sustainable effort. I like to start my days off with some coffee. I'm not really into the fancy Nespresso or Keurig or coffee machines, but I like to keep it simple. Instant coffee, generic instant coffee. I just do it for the hit, I guess, or out of habit, but it's pretty good. I'm not training for another Ironman or even a 70.3 this year, but I still train every day. I am mainly going to be doing the Welland Olympic distance race near Niagara and the Barrie Sprint Triathlon, which I've done before, a few 5K races here and there, and definitely the 5K two-dog race, the Canicross race with Nikki and Smudge, our two dogs. And that's always really fun. We're defending our title for that one. Because fitness isn't about medals or even PBs anymore, at least right now. Definitely I'll be going after those in the future, but it's mainly about formation right now and keeping that strong habit and clarity. Zone 2 training is interesting. It's not flashy. It doesn't feel heroic. You're not dying. You're not sprinting. But I think this is where endurance is actually built. I've been thinking a lot about marriage lately, especially after seeing a lot of content online calling it a trap, or saying men are better off alone, or going their own way. And I get it. Marriage is hard. Being a husband is hard. And being a dad is even harder. But here's what I noticed. Something I've noticed about marriage is that it's a lot like Zone 2 training. It's not always dramatic. It's not always emotional. It's not always exciting. But it's steady. It's consistent. And it's daily. Modern culture and society wants intensity, passion, fire, and instant gratification. But endurance relationships are not built on intensity. They're built on discipline and trusting the process. And that's what we try to do as well. I've been seeing a lot of content lately telling men that marriage is a trap. That if you get married, you're flying into a flame like a moth. That women bring chaos. That peace disappears. That respect disappears. That intimacy becomes leverage. Most of this content is being created by men who have been divorced or can't seem to find a wife or a girlfriend for that matter. And I understand why that message resonates. A lot of marriages are failing. A lot of men feel disappointed. A lot of expectations are unmet. But I want to suggest something different. Maybe marriage isn't the trap. Maybe entering marriage without formation is the trap. Maybe entering marriage without shared faith is the trap. Maybe entering marriage thinking your wife exists to complete you is the trap. But covenant marriage itself, that is not the problem. Let's start here. Marriage was not created by culture. It wasn't created by the state. It wasn't created by modern romance. It was instituted by God. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, it says, "This explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united in one." That is not a contract. That is a covenant. A contract protects personal interests. A covenant binds two people into one mission. If you walk into covenant thinking like it's a contract, you will feel burned because you'll constantly be asking, what am I getting out of this? But covenant asks a different question. What am I building with this person? Now let's address something directly. There is a narrative out there that women misunderstand men, that they hold some impossible standard, 6 foot, 6 figures, 6-pack. Here's my honest perspective. Men and women are different. We process differently. We argue differently. We solve problems differently. That is not oppression. That is by design. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25 commands, "For husbands, this means love your wives just as Christ loved the church. He gave up his life for her." That is not a soft command at all. That is sacrificial leadership and love. Christ did not dominate the church. He died for her. That's the model. And if men enter marriage believing that he's there to extract peace, validation, sex, admiration, he will be truly disappointed because marriage is not designed to serve your ego. It's designed to refine your character. Now let's talk about peace. A lot of men say, "I just want peace." I understand that, but peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of order, and order comes from shared submission to something higher than both of you. If the highest authority in marriage is personal happiness, that marriage will constantly shift. If the highest authority is culture, it will constantly shift. If the highest authority is God, then both people are accountable to something bigger than their emotions. That changes everything. I truly believe marriage should only be entered by people who share faith. Not casually religious, not spiritual, but aligned in conviction. In 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14, it says, "Do not be yoked together with unbelievers, for what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness?" Or as the New Living Translation says, "Don't team up with those who are unbelievers. How can righteousness be a partner with wickedness? How can light live with darkness?" That imagery is agricultural. 2 oxen pulling a plow. If they are pulling in different directions, the field gets destroyed. Marriage without shared faith often becomes 2 people negotiating values. Marriage with shared faith becomes 2 people submitting to the same authority. That's different. That is powerful. Now, does this mean Christian marriages are perfect? Of course not. But the structure is different. Because in Christian marriage, the husband is not called to demand respect. He is called to earn it through love. His wife is not called to control. She is called to support and build. They are both accountable to God. That is not oppression. That is alignment. Let's talk about the idea that women bring chaos. Conflict happens in marriage, but conflict isn't chaos. Uncontrolled ego is chaos. Immaturity is chaos. Unhealed trauma is chaos. Lack of discipline is chaos. That is not a gender issue. That is a formation issue. Marriage will expose your impatience, your pride, your selfishness, and you can say either marriage is the problem, or you can say God is using this to shape me. James chapter 1, 3-4 says, For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. Marriage is a forge. If you're not willing to be refined, it will feel like fire. Now let's talk about intimacy. Yes, physical connection matters deeply to men. But if sex is the foundation of your emotional security, your marriage will feel unstable. Because seasons change, children come, stress comes, exhaustion comes. If intimacy is purely physical, it will fluctuate. If intimacy is covenantal, built on trust, loyalty, shared faith, then physical expression becomes a renewal of something much deeper. Marriage is not a vacation, it is construction, and construction requires discipline. Here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. In Christianity, your spouse comes before your children. That is countercultural and might sound a little wild to some, but it makes sense. Your marriage is the foundation your children stand on. If the foundation cracks, the house shakes. When a man prioritizes his wife, loves her, protects unity, invests in the relationship, he is not neglecting his children. He is stabilizing their world. And when children see affection, unity, prayer, forgiveness between parents, they are learning what covenant looks like. That is formation. Now let me say something clearly. Marriage will not complete you. Your wife is not your savior. She is not your therapist. She is not your spiritual guru. Christ fills that role. And when a man is spiritually anchored, he does not need his wife to constantly validate him. He becomes steady, grounded, clear. That steadiness creates peace. Not the absence of argument, but the presence of leadership. If a man loves his wife as Christ loves the church, sacrificially, patiently, consistently, and he chooses an equally yoked woman who respects that design, the marriage will not be a trap. It will be a training ground, a partnership, a sanctuary. Not because it is easy, but because it is ordered. And I want to be careful here. There are indeed toxic marriages. There is abuse. There are manipulative dynamics. Not every marriage should continue at any cost. But the answer to broken marriage is not permanent bachelorhood. It's better formation, better vetting, better discipleship, better alignment before the wedding. Marriage is not for boys. It is for formed men. And formation doesn't happen automatically. It happens through discipline, faith, self-control, responsibility. If a man enters marriage expecting it to revolve around him, he will feel suffocated. If he enters marriage ready to lead sacrificially, he will grow. And growth can feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is not destruction. So no, I don't believe that marriage is a flame that burns men. I believe selfishness burns men. I believe unrealistic expectations burn men. I believe entering covenant without shared faith burns men. But when two people are equally yoked, submitted to God, committed to covenant over convenience, marriage becomes one of the most powerful formation tools in a man's life. It will test you. It will humble you. It will refine you. And if you endure, not perfectly, but faithfully, it will strengthen you. Marriage isn't the trap. Marriage is the forge. And a forged man is stronger than a drifting one. That is the difference. And that is the better story. If this resonates with you, stick around. We're going to talk about fatherhood next. Because being a husband is step 1, and being a dad is step 2. And both are so very worth it. If you're a husband, dad, or you're preparing to be one, please subscribe. This channel is about building strong men, strong marriages, and strong families. If that resonates with you, like this video and drop a comment below. I read every single one. Take care.